That Tuesday night, I was in my home office, finishing up invoices, while my fiancée laughed with her two bridesmaids in the living room. I wasn't eavesdropping on purpose, but when you hear your own name followed by laughter, you listen. What I heard next shattered everything. I'd never let Jason meet my family. He's way too embarrassing. The plan is to marry him quickly, then either train him or trade him in. In that moment, the wedding I thought was built on love revealed itself as nothing more than a cruel project. So here's the question. What would you do if the person you trusted most secretly turned you into their private joke? My name is Jason Miller, and at 38, I thought I had finally pieced together the kind of life I used to dream about when I was younger and broke. I started my landscaping business with nothing more than a borrowed truck, a push mower, and a stubborn belief that hard work would eventually pay off. 20 years later, it had. I had a team, steady contracts, and a reputation in my city for being reliable, detail-oriented, and, most importantly, honest. When I met Sophia Ramirez, everything seemed to click into place. She was 32, polished, radiant, and moved through social circles I'd never touched. She worked in public relations, always perfectly dressed, always the center of attention at any gathering. Where I was plain-spoken and straightforward, she was charismatic and elegant. I thought she balanced me out. To me, she represented a kind of sophistication I'd never had and maybe never would. Her two closest friends, Chloe and Isabella, were practically permanent fixtures in our lives. They were also her bridesmaids, the ones helping her pick venues, dresses, and color palettes. Around them, Sophia often played the role of the sparkling, witty socialite, while I stood quietly on the side, smiling, proud just to call her mine. Her family, though, was a different story. They were wealthy, well-connected, and, at least from the little I'd seen, impossibly cold. In the 2 years we'd been together, I'd only met them twice, and both times were fleeting introductions. I'd never been invited to a major family event, not a single holiday or birthday. When I asked Sophia why, she'd say things like, "I just don't want you to feel judged. My family can be harsh." I accepted that explanation because I loved her. I told myself she was protecting me. We were engaged for 6 months, and I had already wired deposits for the venue, catering, and photographer. Sophia seemed affectionate, texting me sweet notes, showing me Pinterest boards of wedding decor. Yet every once in a while, she'd make a comment that stung. "You should think about wearing a better watch to the rehearsal dinner," or, "My dad's friends are really refined, so maybe don't talk too much shop about lawn equipment." I laughed it off, convincing myself it was nerves. From the outside, we looked like the perfect couple planning the perfect wedding. Inside, though, a storm was quietly gathering, one I didn't see until it was already breaking over my head. It was a Tuesday night, the kind of evening where I usually lost myself in invoices and job bids in my little office off the living room. Sophia had invited her bridesmaids, Chloe and Isabella, over for wine and wedding planning. I expected giggles, chatter about flowers and playlists. But then, one sentence carved me open. I heard Sophia's voice, sharp and mocking through the thin wall. "I'd never let Jason meet my whole family. He's too embarrassing. The trick is to marry him quickly, then I can either train him up or swap him out later." The room spun. My fiancée, my supposed partner, was laughing at me with her friends, treating me not as a man she loved, but as a project. A placeholder. A joke. I didn't storm out. I didn't scream. Instead, I froze, my heart pounding like a nail gun in my chest. I stayed silent, filing every word away. Anger would have given them power. Silence gave me clarity. The longer I listened, the worse it became. Chloe teased her, asking if maybe Jason could finally meet the family at her mother's upcoming 60th birthday party. Sophia snorted, almost spitting out her drink. "Gunno. That party's at the gallery. Everyone will be there. I'm not parading him around like some landscaping contractor. I'll make sure he's kept far away." They all laughed. My throat went dry. I realized then, I wasn't her fiancé. I was her secret. That night, when the girls left, I smiled, kissed her goodnight, and pretended nothing was wrong. But inside, I was ash. The following day, I started noticing what I'd ignored before. Sophia kept the details of her family events vague, dismissing me whenever I asked questions. She had always been evasive, but now I understood why. She didn't want her two worlds colliding. My suspicions sharpened when I glanced at her phone buzzing on the counter. A message preview from Chloe lit the screen. "Don't worry, I'll help you spin the gallery events so Jason doesn't find out. We can say it's just close relatives." Later that week, Sophia left her laptop open. Normally, I wouldn't have pried, I respected privacy. But that trust was gone. And what I saw confirmed everything. Chats with Chloe read like a strategy session. How to dodge my questions, how to keep me out of sight until after the wedding, how to manage me once her last name changed. One exchange froze me cold. Isabella had messaged, "He doesn't know the half of it, right?" Sophia replied with a winking emoji. "What half? What secrets?" Every discovery was a nail in the coffin of the life I thought we were building. I wasn't just unloved, I was being managed like a liability. The betrayal wasn't only personal, it was financial too. I had already fronted deposits for the venue, the catering, even the honeymoon fund. If she walked away, or worse, if I did, she could spin me as unstable, and I'd lose not just money but reputation. By the end of that week, the picture was clear. I wasn't about to marry Sophia. I was about to marry into humiliation. And unless I acted, I'd lose everything, my pride, my business reputation, maybe even my savings. And so, in the wreckage of that Tuesday night, a decision formed. If I was nothing but a project to her, then I would show her how a man who built everything from nothing handles betrayal. I had two choices: explode in the living room and hand them the scene they wanted, or do something that actually changed the outcome. I chose the latter. For the first time since I'd met Sophia, I let calculation replace emotion. The first call I made was to a lawyer. Not because I wanted to threaten, but because I needed facts. If this was going to be a campaign, it would be run within the lines. The lawyer confirmed what I already suspected. The house was legally mine, the joint savings could be protected, and there were prophylactic steps I could take immediately to prevent any financial surprises. That knowledge steadied me. I started with money. I didn't stage a dramatic bank heist. This wasn't a movie. I quietly moved half of the joint savings into an account only I could access and set up alerts on every joint card. The point was simple. If she planned to treat our engagement like an experiment and then walk away, she shouldn't be able to walk away with money that I'd earned. I'll be honest, it felt petty in the moment. Then it felt necessary. Next came logistics. Revenge that looks messy is almost always messy. I wanted something clean, an action that removed her ability to play the victim and forced the falsehood into daylight. I booked a premium moving company under the pretense of reorganizing the garage. They were professional, efficient, and, crucially, discreet. I arranged for storage unit space and had a driver on standby with a luxury car waiting at a neutral location. None of it was theatrical, no dramatic "you're out" speeches. Just quiet, irreversible steps. Evidence was the other pillar. I went back through what I'd already seen on her laptop and saved everything securely. There were messages with Chloe that read like a playbook for hiding me, recordings in a cloud draft where she and the others laughed about training me, and small notes that proved intent rather than misunderstanding. I backed up everything to encrypted drives and left copies with people I trusted. My sister out of state and an old friend from the business association. If anything slipped sideways, I wanted witnesses and timestamps. Then I planned the reveal. I didn't want to ambush her at home where she could scream, cry, and try to reverse the narrative with a sad face. I wanted to take the action to a public, symbolic moment. Her mother's big 60th at the gallery would be the perfect stage for a quiet but devastating truth. Not to humiliate her in front of guests for pleasure, but to show family and friends the real character they were defending. So I wrote the letters. One to her father, clear, factual, with selective quotes and an invitation to talk. One to her mother explaining the facts and my decision. And one for Sophia herself. A concise, unemotional breakup letter that listed evidence and consequences and told her where her things were. I prepared the logistics so that when she returned home that Friday afternoon she'd find the house changed, not vandalized, neat boxes, a key to the storage unit, and documentation. Finally, I anticipated countermoves. People who get cornered lash out, accuse, and spin. I clipped a short audio file, the line that had started all of this, her laughing about me being too embarrassing. I didn't release it to the world, it wasn't for spectacle. It was insurance. I told a few close, reliable friends quietly what I planned to do, not to gloat, but so there were third-party witnesses who could corroborate if she tried to paint me as the aggressor. By the end of the week, I wasn't the devastated fiancé anymore. I was a man who'd built something from the ground up, acting to protect what mattered. My plan wasn't to hurt for the sake of hurting. It was to remove myself from a lie and make sure the people who had profited from that lie saw it for what it was. Friday morning arrived like the calm before a storm I had designed myself. At 9 a.m., Sophia kissed me on the cheek and breezed out the door, convinced she was heading into another normal workday. Minutes later, the moving trucks rolled into the driveway. The crew was polite, efficient, and fast. Within 3 hours, every trace of her possessions, clothes, handbags, designer shoes, framed photos, was carefully packed and loaded. By noon, the last box was placed into storage. I signed off on the paperwork, pocketed the unit's key, and changed the locks on my front door. The house felt different instantly, lighter, cleaner, mine again. That afternoon, right on schedule, a sleek black luxury sedan pulled into the driveway. Out stepped Sophia, Chloe, and Isabella, laughing, their voices high with champagne arrogance. They didn't notice me at first, standing calmly in the entryway with a faint smile. When Sophia finally spotted me, her laugh froze. "What's going on?" she asked, confusion flickering into irritation. I handed her a thick envelope. "You'll want to read this." Inside was everything. A breakup letter that detailed the conversation I'd overheard, proof of her contempt, and a simple statement: our engagement was over. Along with the letter, I enclosed the storage unit key and instructions on how to collect her belongings. The final line was blunt: "You are no longer welcome in this house." Sophia's face drained of color, then flushed red with fury. "You can't be serious. You're humiliating me in front of my friends." I cut her off. "No, Sophia. You did that yourself." Chloe hissed, "You're a coward, Jason. A manipulative coward." Isabella sneered, calling me a control freak who couldn't handle a real woman. I let them bark. Their words meant nothing now. But that wasn't the only card in play. At the exact same hour, a courier delivered a small package to the prestigious office of Sophia's father. Inside were the 2 engagement rings, the one I'd given her and a matching band she had chosen, as well as my own letter. It explained, without venom, why the wedding was off: deception, manipulation, and disdain. I included a brief note that read, "Commitment without respect is a fraud. I refuse to participate in one." The ripple effects were immediate. Within days, Sophia's facade cracked wide open. Her father, enraged at the scandal, withdrew financial support. Her mother, mortified, forced Sophia to move back home under strict rules. No lavish credit cards, no more gallery events, just curfews and scrutiny. Sophia's carefully curated PR job, reliant on connections and reputation, dissolved within weeks. But Chloe and Isabella weren't spared either. When Sophia tried to rally them to smear me online, I deployed my insurance policy. I sent the 60-second audio clip of Sophia's cruel laughter. "He's too embarrassing to ever meet my family," to 2 people, Tom, Isabella's fiancé, and Sophia's father. I added a short message: "If your campaign to destroy my name continues, I won't hesitate to release more." The reaction was brutal. Tom called off his engagement with Isabella almost immediately, disgusted by her complicity. Chloe's husband found the messages where she encouraged Sophia to exploit me, and their marriage hit the rocks. Sophia, meanwhile, attempted a scorched earth approach, posting dramatic rants on social media about how I was an abuser, a manipulator, a monster. But within 3 hours, every single post vanished. The combination of her father's intervention and the threat of more recordings shut her down completely. Her attorney tried one last desperate maneuver, demanding financial compensation for the cancelled wedding. My lawyer answered with documentation of every expense I had covered, including her designer dress deposit and the venue fees. We didn't just reject her claim, we demanded refunds. And we won. By the end, the scoreboard was clear. Sophia was stripped of her independence, her allies fractured, her reputation ruined. I was free. I sold the engagement ring, a weight I no longer wanted to carry. Half the proceeds went to a local cancer charity, something meaningful my mother would have been proud of. The rest, I used to invest back into my company. A week later, I posted one simple message on social media. Sometimes you don't know what you're escaping until you're finally free. #Survivor. The responses poured in. Support from old friends, respect from clients, even admiration from strangers who understood that dignity wasn't about how hard you hit back, but how cleanly you walk away. Sophia thought she was grooming me into someone more worthy. In the end, she only revealed her own unworthiness. And I, calm, deliberate, and intact, had reclaimed my life. Looking back, I realized the real wound wasn't losing Sophia. It was accepting the brutal truth that she had never valued me at all. For years, I had poured myself into building a future with her, believing that patience, loyalty, and love would be enough. But what hurt deepest was hearing, in her own mocking words, that I was never more than a placeholder, a project, a man to be reshaped or replaced. That betrayal cut deeper than infidelity ever could. And yet, out of that betrayal came clarity. I learned that revenge doesn't need to be loud, messy, or violent. The sweetest justice isn't in screaming matches or public spectacles. It's in staying calm, documenting the truth, and letting people destroy themselves with their own arrogance. My retaliation wasn't about humiliation. It was about reclaiming my dignity, securing my freedom, and walking away without a stain on my name. I understood something crucial. When someone consistently belittles or hides you, the worst thing you can do is beg for respect. Respect isn't given by pleading, it's earned by standing tall, by refusing to be diminished, and by showing you can act decisively when pushed to the edge. My actions were not about vengeance, they were about balance, about righting the scales. Sophia's downfall wasn't engineered solely by me. It was the natural result of her own choices, accelerated by the mirror I held up to her life. She wanted me as a secret, now she became the embarrassment she tried to avoid. She wanted to manipulate me quietly, instead, her lies exploded in public. She thought she was teaching me refinement. In the end, I taught her a lesson in consequences. For me, the story didn't end with bitterness. I've grown stronger, more self-assured. I know now what I will and won't tolerate, both in love and in life. I've reconnected with friends, thrown myself into my business, and even started seeing someone new, a woman who doesn't care about appearances, only about who I am at my core. That's the kind of partnership worth fighting for. Meanwhile, the last I heard of Sophia, she looked tired, withdrawn, a shadow of the woman who once strutted into rooms with her chin high. The irony is cruel but fitting. She became the very shame she once tried to pin on me. And me? I walked away free, intact and unashamed, living proof that the best revenge is reclaiming your own life. That was my story, how a woman I trusted dismissed me as too embarrassing, and how I turned her cruelty into her own downfall. But I know I'm not the only one who's faced betrayal that cuts deep. Have you ever been blindsided by someone you loved? How did you respond? Share your experience in the comments. Your perspective might give strength to someone standing where you once stood. If stories of betrayal, smart payback, and personal redemption resonate with you, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week I break down new true-life cheating stories that reveal not just the pain, but the strategies for taking back your power. And if you're in the middle of betrayal now, don't panic. Stay calm, protect your assets, gather the truth, and remember, you're never as powerless as you feel.